have sought to shift the blame onto others. And let me make it abundantly clear that I hold no remit for the Hadid Group of companies. In fact, Madam Speaker, I have been very critical of the Hadid Group of companies, especially APC, insofar as the monopolistic situation is concerned. In fact, Madam Speaker, I will share with this Honorable House a statement that I wrote in excess of 2 years ago on the APA-APC power generation deal. But, Madam Speaker, I would have expected that the Honorable Prime Minister would have come to this nation with some solution to the problem. Not to come here to name and shame Hadid. Madam Speaker, for instance, I would have expected that the Honorable Member for Rural West, the Honorable Prime Minister, would have said to this nation that, look, I'll be making certain legislative changes or will be introducing certain pieces of legislation in order to curb antitrust situations or to avert those type of situations in the future. I would have expected, Madam Speaker, that perhaps the Honorable Member could have looked at the possibility of maybe putting together a bipartisan committee of this House to negotiate with the Hadids, maybe to buy the existing plants and then to privatize them. There are so many options, Madam Speaker, that could have been looked at. But instead, all I've heard coming from the other side is that it is Hadid's fault why we are in darkness today. Madam Speaker, I just want to caution the people of this country about that type of rhetoric. And when people, members on the other side, cloak themselves in the flag, Madam Speaker, and ask the nation to gird their loins and join the battle, you have to look beyond those words. Because at the end of the day, the problem that we are faced with today in this country has nothing to do with no power monopoly. And I want to make it abundantly clear, I do not want anyone to get me wrong. I am not supporting any monopolization of power in this country by any private entity. But the reality is, Madam Speaker, the situation that we're in today is due to ineffective leadership, incompetent leadership, and bad governance. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, what is happening here today in this country with the electricity situation is, in essence, misbehavior in public office. And the Honorable Prime Minister, the member for Rural West, and his colleagues should not be allowed to get away with this. They have literally taken us back to the dark ages, Madam Speaker, literally and figuratively. And let me share with the nation what pertained in 2004 when we left government. Madam Speaker, in 2004, when the UPP inherited the governance of this country, there were several plants that were generating power for this country, other than the APC plants. They include Tango, that was generating at least 9 megawatts of power, and I understand that it had the capacity to do 18, Madam Speaker. Friesel, 10 megawatts. There's 2 others, the debacle plants, I understand 4 each, that's another 8 megawatts. We used to buy power from St. James's Club as well. I understand that their plant is about 5 megs. WEOC as well, Madam Speaker, used to supply to the government. They have a plant that is about 4 megs. So that in 2004, Madam Speaker, we had excess capacity in this country. Excess generating capacity in this country. So that if any one of these plants, Madam Speaker, at that time, for whatever reason, malfunctioned, there would not have been a crisis at that time. Madam Speaker, they argued, and rightfully so, that several of the plants that they inherited were old plants. They had age, and that is indeed so. But one would have expected that before they actually mothballed those plants, Madam Speaker, that they would have made adequate arrangements for their replacements. And Madam Speaker, this power generation issue has been ongoing for some time now, for several years. And having listened to the Honorable Prime Minister, the member for Rural West, as well as the member for City East, Madam Speaker, what has become clear is that the UPP government was actually negotiating concurrently with two different entities for additional power generation. They were negotiating with the Chinese on the one hand, Madam Speaker, and the other hand, they were negotiating with APC. Now, Madam Speaker, if that is not incompetence, you tell me what is. Because if, according to the member for Rural West, the Honorable Prime Minister, that they approached the Chinese in December of 2005, and that a month later, Madam Speaker, they got a verbal commitment that the Chinese will look favorably of providing the additional power generation, then why did they even entertain APC in 2006? Why did they, Madam Speaker, allow the Honourable Member for St. Philip South, the Honourable Wilmoth Daniel, Madam Speaker, to enter into a joint venture agreement with APC, knowing that they had discussions and a tentative agreement, according to the member for Rural West, for the Chinese to satisfy our power requirements. And that is why I said, Madam Speaker, this has nothing to do with no monopoly situation. It is due to governance incompetence, leadership, or incompetent leadership, Madam Speaker. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And I'm using what they said in this Honourable House to make my conclusion. And if I'm misquoting anyone on the other side, feel free to stand in a point of order or a point of elucidation.
Madam Speaker, now that the member has asked for a point of information, in his presentation just now, he said...
Which are you offering?
Point of information, or
Elucidation.
correction. He said something I think is information. He made the point that the government got into a joint venture agreement with APCL, and that at no time the member from Rural West never said any such thing. So I would like the member to correct that and take that back, because it's in the Hansard now that he's implying that we said that there was a joint venture agreement, that the member from St. Philip's North agreed to a joint venture arrangement with APCL, and that is not a fact.
Madam Speaker, I keep telling the Honourable Member for St. John's Rural North to listen and learn. What I said, Madam Speaker, is that you had concurrent negotiations taking place. One involving the Chinese, which started in December 2005, according to the member for St. John's Rural West. And, Madam Speaker, subsequently with APC, involving the Honourable Member for St. Philip South, in which, Madam Speaker, he signed, and I want to refer you to a document which I would make available to this Honourable House, an agreement dated May 11, 2006, reference Joint Venture Electricity Supply Proposal, APUA and APCL. Madam Speaker, this agreement was signed by Leon Chaku-Semester as General Manager for APUA, Honourable Wilmoth Daniel, Minister of Works, Transportation, the Environment and APUA, Esworth Martin, Finance and Accounts Manager, APUA, Lyndon Francis, Electricity Manager, APUA, and signed on the 12th day of May 2006. Also, it was agreed upon and accepted by Francis Adid, Chairman of APCL, and Khalid Hazard, General Manager of APCL. Madam Speaker, the facts are here to support my assertion that there were negotiations taking place concurrently with two entities. And I'm saying, Madam Speaker, that is what has created the problem today. And you know what's going to happen, Madam Speaker? You're going to have a situation in which the people of this country will be called upon to pay for power generation capacity which it will never have utility of. In other words, Madam Speaker, there is a litigation now involving APC. And I want to tell you, Madam Speaker, based on the documentation